Yo, shalom, shalom. What's good? What's good? I know y'all see the title, Lucifer and the Angels, right? We're gonna get into, what people commonly will, you know, will say like the devil, Lucifer, angels, all that cool stuff, right? But we gotta, I said in previous videos about the biblical terminologies, right? That we have to understand, and so we're gonna get into it. And just go through certain things to explain like these certain things that we've been taught throughout the years to think, you know, concerning these different, so-called heavenly beings and all that cool stuff, right? So, without further ado, of course, all praise to the Most High, and we do so in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly called Jesus Christ, right? Um, so yeah, we're gonna just break it down real quick. Because just spoiler alert, because we've been through the terminologies before, so I'm just gonna just lay it out there. Lucifer just means light bearer, a person that brings the light, understanding, wisdom, knowledge. Right? That's what the word Lucifer means. It's a title, and it's not a name. Satan, it just means enemy in Hebrew. Satan, how they say it in Hebrew, just mean enemy, right? It's not the name of who people think the devil is, right? So, I'm laying all that out there. So we're gonna get into the whole shebang thing of it, right? And just to give a little understanding context, right? We're gonna just start off with this little introductory scripture, whatever, right? Before we get into the whole lesson. So this is Revelation 2 and 9, right? We're going to start at Revelation 2 and 9, just real quick. And it says, I know thy works and tribulations and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them that say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogues of Satan, right? So that means the chief house of Satan. Synagogue means chief house. So it's some people going around with the little stuff on the side of their head and the little saucers on the top of their head, calling themselves Jews. But right here it says, and are not, but are the synagogues of Satan, right? So they're being referred as Satan, right? So then it says, fear none of these things which which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. And that 10 days is just a symbolic number. It's not an actual, this physical 10 days. It's just a symbolic number for a complete amount of time. Then it says, but thou be faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. Right? So somebody is going to be throwing us in prison. So is it the spiritual demon Satan that's going to be putting people in a physical prison? No. We know who puts us in prison, right? We know who runs the prison systems, right? So it says, let's just get a precept on that. It says, he that overcometh, we're going to jump down to 26. He that overcometh and keep my works unto the end, to him I will give power over the nations, right? And he shall rule them with an iron rod, as a vessel of a potter. They shall be broken to shivers, even as I receive of my Father, right? So we overcome these tribulations that we go through in this land, and then at the end, because it says we got to be faithful to death, unto death, and meaning what that mean is, sometimes meaning that you have to. Like I said, some of us might end up dying, before the whole shebang is finished. But as long as you keep that faith, then you're gonna get that crown of glory. right, in the next life. So let's get hold on real quick. Mm-mm-mm. Hold on, real second, real quick, real quick, real quick. Real quick. Um, I think I want Zephaniah real quick. Hold on, y'all. Where's Zephaniah? Hold on one second. I got right here. Where's Zephaniah? Ah. But no, I just wanted to get a precept to go with it, even though I don't necessarily need it. But I just wanted to just further prove the point. Let's see. Then Zechariah. Well, hold on. We'll get it. We'll get it. But we'll just get on with the lesson. But because I just wanted to get something to back up that Revelation 2:9 and 2:10, right? But to my next point though, 'cause I don't want to spend too much time looking for it. Because and how we know that the context haven't changed because most Bibles have these in their Bible, and it's a marker to let you know when the context has changed, when the subject has changed. Now they're talking about something different. So just show y'all two examples real quick. Like right here, and this I'm gonna put it up to the camera so you can see. So right here, this marker. I don't know if y'all can be able to see it that good because of the light, but it's a marker right here by the number 36. It look like a backwards P that's colored in and like a little eye next to it. So whenever you see one of these things in your Bible, that means the context is changing. That they're talking about something else. So and again, we see it. Where we at? We see it right here next to the 41. Just look like a little backwards P that's colored in with a little eye thing next to it. It looked like an eye. And so it lets you know when the context is changing. So when we read Revelation 2 and 9, and then it's gotten to start speaking about the devil and Satan, so we see that it's still talking about a context. So it's talking about a certain people that is being called Satan and the devil, right? And the word devil just means to deceive. That's the word devil means, right? The word devil just means to deceive. It's so let's get so now let's go to Isaiah 14. Right. So now this is the common chapter that everybody places Lucifer at. The so-called devil. And since we're not familiar with the terminologies, we automatically suspect this is the spiritual demon Lucifer, right? But when you read it and you see that it's actually not, but we're going to see it as we read, right? We're going to start from the top though, right? Because to understand it. So it says, so this is Isaiah 4 and 1. I mean 14 and 1. My bad. For the Lord have will have mercy on Jacob, which is the Israelites, and yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place. Right? Just like how once upon a time they took us and brought us to their place called America. Right? So it says, and the people should take them and bring them to their place. Right? And it says, and it says, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and for handmaids, and they shall take them captive, who captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. Right? So it's letting you know this is future connotations of it's going to come upon a time where the Israelites is going to actually it's going to be a role reversal from the people that had them in slavery. Then they're going to have to go into slavery because number one, that's called justice, right? Because we serve a God that's justice. That's why they say what goes around comes around, right? Then it says, and it shall come to pass, and it shall come to pass in that day the Lord shall give thee rest from all thy sorrow and from thy fear and from the bondage where thou hast made to serve. And where's the bondage that we have been made to serve? All over these Americas, whether it's South America, North America, the Caribbean, over there on in Europe, all over the world that you can think of that we've been. Because when we look at the map of the transatlantic slave trade, they sent us everywhere, right? So it says, uh, boom, boom, boom. It says, thou shall be given give thee rest from sorrow and from thy fear and from hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve. Because it's hard bondage. You got to wake up every morning, go to work, punch a clock, barely make enough money to actually have a sustainable living, right? So this is hard bondage. You know what I'm saying? Then, the prison systems, right? Some people would say all the best jobs is in prison, right? Because what these companies do, right? They take all the, they tell you that the jobs is leaving America. Some of them are, but most of them is being taken to the prison systems where you can work and, where slavery is still legal at. They pay you like 15 cents an hour, probably a little more, you know. So think about it. You have a job, like say like you work at like some type of, factory work, and that job pays like 20 something an hour. So now you got all these inmates in jail, and that job pays 20 something an hour, but they're only getting uh 70 cent or something at the most off those 70 cent an hour from those the jobs that they're being forced to do. Then if you don't want to work, they put you in solitary confinement, right? So it's forced labor, and they're paying you pennies to do it, right? And it's legal because the American Constitution says in the 13th Amendment that our people think that made us free, but it says you're free until you commit a crime, right? So as we read in Revelation, it says the devil should put some of you in prison, right? Then the verse I was looking for was telling you that, we are hidden in their prison houses, right? So we understand the devil is not some spiritual, some spiritual demon thing that's going around just doing whatever he want to do. We're going, like I said, we're going to get more context on it. So I'm just reading this thing right here because this is where most people, when they talk about Satan or whatever, this is the chapter that they go to. So, but we're reading it, word for word and seeing that it's talking about people here, right? So it says, and thou shalt take up this parable against the king of Babylon, and say, how the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased. What is that golden city? America, right? That is the golden city because like we already went over, ancient Babylon has not been destroyed because you have something called Iraq, Iran. Those countries are still flourishing, right? They're not inhabitable. People still live there, right? When you read the prophecies about Babylon, people is not going to be able to live here anymore. Why? Because the nuclear fallout, right, from World War III, right? So it says, and thou shalt take up this parable against the king of Babylon, and say, how has the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased? The Lord have broken the staff. The Lord has broken the staff of the wicked, and the scepter of the rulers. Right. So let's see who the wicked is. Right. Because let's just look real quick who the Bible say the wicked is. Because we gotta understand that Esau. Hold on, real quick. Yeah, my bad. So yeah, Esau or Edom is the biblical name for the so-called Caucasian, right? So let's see who. Um, let's see what it says, right? Let's go to going backwards. This way. Let's go to Malachi real quick. So I'm just going to jump to the point. So it says, whereas Edom said, this is Malachi 1 and 4. Uh, whereas Edom said, we are impoverished, but we will return and build in desolate places. That's what they did. They built up these different civilizations: the Romans, the Greeks, America, Britain, France, Spain, all these different nations that they come from. They build them up. It says, we will build in desolate places. Thus said the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down. Meaning God, every time they get their civilization going, God is going to destroy it. That's why America is on a decline now. It says, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people who the Lord have indignation forever. So right there we see that these people are being called the border of wickedness. So they are the wicked when the Bible speaks of the wicked chiefly. Now, at times, it could be talking about some this, you know, wicked people, period, but mostly it's talking about them, right? And we see that he's calling them the wicked, and he's calling them the border of wickedness, meaning their whole embodiment contains evil and wickedness. So it says, and the people who the Lord has indignation forever. And that word indignation means hatred forever, right? Righteous hatred. That's what it means. So back to Isaiah 14. So it says, boom, boom, boom. And the Lord had broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers, meaning he took away their power, took away their kingdoms. It's not going to be, when it's all said and done, it's not going to be no more uh, people ruling their nation, because the Messiah, who the people call Jesus, he's going to be ruling the nations. So there's no need for no other government, right? So it says, he who smote the people in wrath, a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger and persecuted, and none hindered, right? So talking about how he was able to just run rampant around the world, telling police in the world, telling everybody what to do. Then if they don't want to do it, he puts sanctions on them. He might bomb their country, whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? It says, he who smote the people in wrath and continued stroke, he that ruled nations in anger and persecuted, because he done a lot of persecution, and none hindered. And the whole earth is at rest and quiet. they they break forth into singing, right? So the whole world is going to be happy when these people is no longer in power, right? It says they break forth in singing because these people have ruled the world for the last 2,000 years, and they, basically destroyed the earth the whole time of in power. They polluted the oceans, polluted the air, polluted the water. They killed gazillions of people, right? So who are we talking about here? We're talking about people. But again, this chapter is used to talk about Satan, right? So it says, yeah, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon say, since thou art laid down, no feller is come up against us. Uh, hell from hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet, and thy coming is stirred up, and the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It has risen up from their thrones, and all the kings of the nations. Right. So, like I said, so just expressing how these, how they ruled over these people, and now these people that they were subject to, and ruling over now, they in the spirit of rejoicing, right? And it says, all they that speak and say unto thee, art thou as become weak as we? So they're going to be looking at it when America finally get taken down. The countries that is not as powerful as America, who they call third world countries, right? They're going to be looking at America like they're a third world country. It says, and all they that speak and say unto thee, art thou as also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us, right? Because that's what's going to happen. A lot of these, when these countries get start dropping those little, because Russia got that Satan 2 bomb. When they deploy all that stuff and press that button, that's what's going to be said. It's like thou art thou like thou become like unto us, right? Let's get Joel real quick. Yeah, hold on one second. Uh-uh. Get Joel 3 and 10 real quick. So Joel 3 and 10 says, beat your plowshares into swords, and your prong hooks into spears, and let the weak say, I am strong. Right? That's what's going to happen when they see America's being taken down, or they got their spirit on them right now. That's why a lot of these countries is rising up, and they declining America's assistance. You know what I'm saying? They're not no longer taking their money anymore. You know what I'm saying? They said we're gonna figure it out on our own, right? So it says, beat your plowshares into swords, and your prong hooks into spears, and let the weak say, I am strong. This is a prophecy telling the nations to get ready for war, get ready for battle, right? So let's get back to Isaiah 14. And it says, thy pomp, uh, thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows, the worms is spread it over thee, and the worms cover thee. So what do worms do? They eat dead things. So it's talking about how this place is going to be destroyed, and then you know, and these and the bodies just have worms covered. Just eating. The worms covering on them, right? So it says, "How art thou?" Now this is the part right here. So this is the part where everybody. So now we just read about this is talking about a nation of people being taken out of power, right? And other nations rejoicing at this nation of people being taken out of power. And we read earlier about how we is going to take those people and put them in chains and make them servants unto us. So now this is verse 12. How art thou fallen, O heaven, O Lucifer? Right? So here's that word, Lucifer, which means light, bearer. Why is this place Lucifer? Because they set up the educational systems. They got the educational institutions that we have to go to and learn their philosophies, learn their history, what they think is credible and stuff. So we flock to their schools. We go and get these scholarships so we can go to their schools. So they are the light bringer right now. They the ones that's you know deciding what's knowledge and wisdom in the world through their philosophies and their institutions that they have set up. Right. So that's what Lucifer means. It means the light bringer, the one that has the knowledge. So now the world is looking at these people as the one that have the knowledge, right? And America got to their prestige, chiefly through World War II when they dropped the atom bomb on Japan. So all the other nations didn't have the weapons like that now. You know what I'm saying? So they like, well, shoot, we can't mess with America, so we might as well just get down. You know what I'm saying? Because the get down and lay down thing. So they're like, well, we want to get down, right? So now, fast forward 50, 60 something years later, Russia got stuff that's even bigger, right? They got stuff that's 50 times stronger than that the world ever seen, right? And we saw the devastation that happened to Nagasaki and Hiroshima, right? So imagine something that's 50 times worse than that, but in Russia has it, right? So we see Lucifer is a man. It says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? Thou art cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations." Right? How do you weaken the nations? By ruling over them, stealing their resources, right? Putting sanctions on the countries that they don't want to mess with, making sure that the countries that they don't want to rise to power don't rise to power. And, so they weaken the nations through their policies, through their warfare, right? So, and it says, falling from heaven. Heaven, like I said, we did a lesson on these terminologies before. So heaven just means rulership, right? So you have different definitions of heaven depending on the context, right? So you have the heaven where the Most High dwell at. You have the heaven which is the sky. Then you have heaven meaning rulership and power, dominion, right? So most of the time, when it speaks of heaven, it's talking about rulership and dominion, right? So and we know that through the context of how it's being stated, right? So it says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? Thou art cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations." And we already went over how they weaken the nations through their policies, their warfare, their sanctions and all this and etc. Right? And it says, "For thou said in thy heart, I will ascend to heaven, unto heaven." And how do they ascend to heaven? With their little, calling themselves going to the moon, right? Building their little space stations out there, putting all their satellites out there, right? It says, "I will ascend to heaven," and they're trying to figure out how to get to Mars and stuff. They want to terraform Mars, right? They want to create a living environment on Mars, right? And Mars doesn't look like it's safe for any. Mars is not a safe place for anybody to be at, right? But they want to waste gazillions of dollars to do that. Instead of just fixing Earth, fixing where they messed up at. But no, that's as my mom would say, that's too much like right. That's too much like right to fix where they stay at. They want to go to Mars and try to terraform Mars. Why don't you terraform Earth? You're cutting down trees in the rainforest and all that stuff. You're killing the fishes in the ocean. Why don't you try to fix the stuff here first, right? But they're not gonna do that because that's how they get down. It says, "Thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend to the heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God." Right? So, like I said, how they exalt their throne above the stars of God? Because we are the stars of God. When you read the book of Revelation and talk about he seen an angel that had 12 stars. Those 12 stars represent the 12 tribes of Israel. And how did he put his throne above the stars of God? By when he put us into slavery and he subjugated us. That's how he did that, right? So it says, above the stars of God, I will sit upon the mount of the congregation of the side of the north. And what's the north? America. That's the north. And where is the God's people? America. And where is God's people being persecuted and subjugated? America. Right? So now it makes sense. So we see who we're talking about here. We're not talking about some type of, man in a red suit with a pitchfork, right? Because that's crazy. Like, people got to start putting respect on God's name, right? They think that, Yahweh don't have his house in order where he just got angels just going around doing whatever the heck they want to do. And he can't control it. Like, Satan just going to actually come and fight with God. And now they have a big old fight. So now he got to kick Satan out. That's crazy, right? To even think that the Most High God, who has all power, don't have power over his creation. That's crazy to think. That is called Greek mythology and Roman mythology, right? That's what that comes down to. But we don't understand that when we follow this thing called Christianity, we don't understand that we're following Greek mythology and Roman mythology, right? We don't understand that because we're not putting two and two together. Because we think this is, because we see a pastor in a fancy suit, he got a nice car. We think this is what it is. But no, this is called mythology. Because there's no such thing as, like, when you die, you go to heaven, or when you die, if you're good, or you die, you go to hell when you're bad. The Bible does not say that, right? So that's why what the prayer say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name on earth as it is in heaven. So the kingdom is going to be on earth, right? That's why Jesus says the kingdom is at hand, right? The kingdom is nigh. The kingdom is near, right? The kingdom is within you, what he said, right? So we got to understand these things. So we got to understand these terminologies because we spent so many years sitting in those buildings listening to a sweaty pastor say all this craziness, and now we all jacked up in the head because when you read the Bible and you try to put what you thought you learned in church into the Bible, then you get confused and people end up throwing out the whole book, and not because they don't have understanding of what they're reading. So it says, for thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend unto heaven, and I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit upon the mountain of the congregation on the sides of the north, which is America, and the stars is the Israelites, right? It says, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Like I said, how he did that through his satellites. He got satellites all through these skies where he can zoom in and watch anything that he want to watch at any given time. Got technology where he can see through walls. Got recording devices and everyday electronics where you can listen to your conversation, right? That's why when you be talking about something on your phone, with your phone around, and you go to your phone, then you open up the screen, and one of the first, advertisement is the same thing you was talking about, because they're listening, right? So this is how it says they're trying to be like the Most High, because the Most High is all knowing. So now they're using technology to imitate the powers of the Most High, right? So it says, and yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the side of the pit, right? And it says, and they shall, and hell just meaning a lower state, right? It's not talking about, because like I said earlier, it's not talking about when you die, you go to hell if you're bad or all that stuff, right? Because the Bible tells you judgment takes place on earth. You can read about that in Ecclesiastes. So it says, and they shall narrowly look upon thee. So now the people's going to be able to look upon thee. Whoever looked at Satan, right? Satan is supposed to be an interdimensional being So whoever looked at Satan, right? That's crazy, right? So it's talking about a nation of people. It says you should narrowly look. You know how you narrowly look when you look at something in disbelief, right? Because we're gonna know that these people once ruled this earth at a certain point in time in history. So then it's gonna come upon a time where we're gonna be looking at these people, you know, in servitude, and then we're gonna be telling our kids like, hey, these people, man, they used to, you know, actually run the earth and stuff. They had everybody under control. Then people is gonna be in disbelief that wow, these the people that had the earth, and they was running it, right? It says, and they should narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, this is the man that made the earth tremble. This is the man. It's not. It didn't say this is the spiritual Satan being. It said this is the man that made the earth tremble, right? So it's denoting the fact that we're talking about people here, right? It's not talking about no spiritual entity, right? It says, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shaking the kingdoms? And how did he shake the kingdoms? By going around with with war, what I'm saying, with their policies, like we went over, what I'm saying, um, just their sure military might, because they have military bases all over the earth, right? Any country you can think of, they got a military base over there, right? Or at least close by it, right? So that's how they make the earth to tremble. That's how they over here ruling the planet, right? And it says, that made the world a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the houses of his prisoners. And they're not going to open up the houses of their prisoners, right? That's why, because they have something called prison for profit. Like we went over, like a phone company has a contract with these prisons where the prisoners can make phones. Now, typically, those type of jobs would pay like 15 some dollars an hour, but they're giving the prisoners 70 cents an hour. So basically, the prison is making $19 an hour off of every prisoner, right? So they're not going to open up their prison house, right? Because America has prison for profit, right? So it says, and the kings of the nation, and even all of them, lie in glory, every one in his own house. But thou art cast out of thy grave like a abominable branch, right? Because they are abominable. They have to be cast out, because if not, they will run this place into the ground like they're currently doing, right? Then it says, where am I? Boom, boom, boom. Then it says, in the remnant of those that are slain, uh, thrust through with a sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, and the carcass is trodden underfoot. Right? Y'all saw the movie Terminator, right? Remember how Terminator comes on? You had the like you see, like it's like a ground full of bones and skulls and stuff that's laying on the ground. Then there's a little robotic tank is just rolling over the skulls, crushing it, symbolizing that their dominance, right? So this is what's going to happen to these people. They're going to be trotted up. They're just going to be walked over, right? Trotted over. So as we see, we're reading about a group of people being taken out of power, not some spiritual being that was up in heaven fighting with God, and then all of a sudden they had a big fight and God kicked them out. That's, like I said, we got to put respect on the Most High Yahweh's name. Because we think that he don't have his stuff in order. If you think that, then that means you don't think God has all control. That he just let angels do whatever they want. And you know why people think that? Because people want to use that as an excuse. They're like, well, if the angels can go against God, then what's wrong with us going against God? So they want to use that as an excuse to sin, to continue in their wicked way of doing things. But that's not so, because we're reading the same chapter that they would tell you in church is talking about Lucifer. we're reading it word for word, and we're seeing it's talking about a group of people, right? So it says, and thou should not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people, and the seed of evildoers shall never be renowned, right? So meaning they're going to be exterminated, for lack of better words, right? At some point in time, they're going to be extinct, right? Then it says, prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, right? So, like I said, we're dealing with people here. It's telling you to prepare slaughter for his children, because you would talk to the children of these people, and they would say, "Well, we wasn't back then. We didn't have anything to do with slavery, but they're benefiting from slavery, and they would not give up their benefits. If they really want to help, they would say, well, I know my parents, my grandparents, great grandparents stole this land. They kidnapped people. They got rich. The right thing to do is to give it all back, right? But they would not do that, right? Like I said a few weeks ago, if you got you a so-called Caucasian friend and you think y'all cool, ask them how they feel about reparations. Ask them, do they think that white people should pay for what their ancestors have done? Ask them what is the appropriate measures for justice, right? And see what they say. And you're going to find out that they're not your friend, right? So it says, prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise nor possess the land, nor fill the faces of the world with cities, right? So just like they redline us and didn't allow us to own property, it's going to be illegal for them to even try to set up shop anywhere. Just like they got laws where certain cities, back in the plantation. Well, I could take it back to the plantation. It says that two or more slaves couldn't gather together. Or now how they got it now, like they call it loitering. So that's what especially where I'm from. They passed those laws. That's why a lot of us stopped hanging out on the corners. But they passed a law saying that you know, you know, three is a crowd. You can't be on the corner like that. So it all go back to the plantation, but it's going to be just like that for them. It says, nor that they do not rise nor possess the land nor fill the face of the earth of the world with cities. So they're not going to be able to just repopulate and rebuild anymore, have any type of sustainable way of living. It's going to be against the law for them, because whenever they commit atrocities. And if you don't believe me, just look at history. Wherever they go, genocide follows. Just think where they at. They're in Australia. They killed everybody there. They went to South America. They tried to kill everybody there. I mean, South Africa. They tried to kill everybody there. And they were successful enough to take over South Africa, right? America. They killed everybody down there. Everybody here in America. South America, the Caribbean, all these areas, Hawaii, all these different places they go, is mass genocide follows. This is why they have to be gone, and they can no longer be able to have any type of substantial thing that resembles power, right? Because this is what they do. It's in their nature to destroy, right? Then it says 22, for I will rise up against them, said the Lord of hosts. So it's not me speaking this, because I know y'all might say, oh, well, dang. No, but this is what God is saying. We're reading out the Bible, and this is a future prophecy. It says, for I will rise up against them, said the Lord of hosts, and I will cut off from Babylon the name and the remnant and the son and the nephew, and said the Lord. Meaning he's going to take the whole everything out. The from the nephew to the uncle, to the brother, to the sister, all that stuff, is going to be gone with, right? So let's get let's go to Obadiah real quick. Let's go to Obadiah. So as we see, the main chapter that they use to try to illustrate that um, about, I'm not saying that it's not a spiritual demon Satan, because we're gonna get into all of that, right? But I'm just saying that this chapter here is not talking about the spiritual demon Satan, right? So let's get Obadiah, right? I'm gonna start at 4. For thou exalt thyself as an eagle, right? So what's the symbol of America? An eagle, right? And all through the ages, whenever these people, they always use the eagle. Their whole everything always used the eagle, right? Dating all the way back to Greece and Rome. Their symbol always been the eagle, right? Um, and it says, though though thou exalt thyself as an eagle, and thou set thy nest among the stars, hence I will bring thee down, said the Lord. And we already understood that the stars is talking about Israelites, right? Then also, if you want to go a little deeper with it, like I said, it's talking about their their satellite systems, their space stations, their their uh, their their NASA, their ability to travel to what they call space and all that stuff. If you want to get a little deeper with it, but chiefly it's talking about the Israelites, right? Let's get let's jump down to 8. Shall I not in that day, said Yahweh, even destroy the wise man out of Edom, and the understanding out of the mount of Esau, right? So, like I said, so we just read in Isaiah that he's going to destroy them. Now we see here in another prophecy that he's going to destroy them again, right? Then let's get let's jump to let's go to 10. So it says, "And thy mighty men of Teman shall be dismayed, even to the end. Every one of Mount Esau may be cut off by slaughter. Every one of Mount Esau may be cut off by slaughter." Right? That's what's gonna happen to him. Right? So it's not me saying this. This is a prophecy. And this prophecy haven't happened yet, meaning it's coming, is going to happen, right? Because God does not lie. So if we're reading this and we're saying this is going to happen to a particular group of people, then, and we say we believe in God, and we should know that God is not a man that he should lie, right? So it says, "For thy violence against thy brother Jacob," because at one point in time, we come from the same ancestors. So it says, "For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever." Right? So that's their future, be cut off from ever. So when we read about, it says Lucifer falling from heaven, it's, as we read that last chapter, we read the whole chapter down there, and it's talking about people. It's not talking about, like I said, this somebody in a red suit with a pitchfork. But like I said, we're gonna see, we're gonna get into the whole Lucifer and the angel stuff, right? Well, I mean, we already touched on the Lucifer thing, because Lucifer is just means light bearer, light bringer, right? So let's go to Job real quick, right? Let's go to Job. And like I said, so pastor is not going to break these things down like this, right? Because, like I said, because in church, you go to church and you learn theology. You learn not only theology, you learn Greek mythology and Roman theology. So they have a concept of heaven and hell where like good guys go here and bad guys go there. But the Bible does not say that, right? So just see what's going on with this whole devil thing, right? So this is the book of Job 1-6, right? So it reads, "And now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them." Right. So now this is God sitting in his throne room, He's having a meeting like he often do, and the sons of God come to present themselves. And it says Satan also. So it's separating Satan from the from the others just because this is who the story is. Who this is who we're about to read about, right? So it can be interchangeable. Like if they was talking about Michael or Gabriel, it can still say the sons of God came to present themselves, and Michael also, because it emphasized that because it's letting you know who we're talking about. So it says, now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord Yahweh, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, uh, whence comest thou? So he's asking Satan for a report, right? And not that he didn't know what Satan was doing, but Satan has a job to do. And just real quick, I'm gonna explain it. So it's just like, look at it like this: when you're in court, right? You have the judge, right? So let's say the judge is the Most High. Then you have the prosecutor, the one that's bringing charges on you. He's on the left hand side of God. Then you have you and your lawyer. You're on the right hand side of God, right? So Satan's job is to bring up charges against you. So whenever God in your lawyer, which would be the Mashiach Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus, is trying to present a case for you and say, well, and try to plead your case to the Most High and say, hey, well, this person's not that bad, God, maybe you should give him another chance. But then you have Satan playing the part of the prosecutor. His job is to bring charges up to God to say, well, hey, this person did this person is doing that, right? So that's his job to bring charges to you, just like how a prosecutor brings the charges to the judge, right? So look at it like that to simplify it, right? So it says, when Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro from the earth, right? So, like I said, so it's not that Satan don't have, because like I said, they'll make it seem like Satan got kicked out, right? But we're reading that Satan is up in heaven in a meeting with God and the rest of the angels, and he's giving his report on what he's finding on the earth, right? So, and because his job is to go to and forth, back and forth all through this earth, trying to see what person he can influence. So then when he influences you to do something, then his job is to report back to God and say, hey God, this person is doing this, right? So it says, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down it. And the Lord said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job? So God is like, so God offered Job up to Satan, right? So, because God is looking at it like Job is like the coldest of the coldest. You know what I'm saying? He don't do nothing wrong. He always keep it 100, right? So he's like why? He like, man, have you considered my servant Job? Because he's like, he doing his thing out there, right? Then it says that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, right? Because once again, the word perfect means to follow the laws of God, because the laws of God is perfect, right? You can read that in Psalms 19:7. It tells you that the laws of God is perfect, converting the soul. So that's how you become perfect, because we got this understanding thinking that perfect just means to never ever make a mistake, like you just a goody two shoe. No, perfect means keeping the laws of God, because the laws of God is perfect, and then when we follow those laws, we become perfect, right? It's simple. So it says, boom, 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 where is that? Yeah, a perfect and upright man that fears God and eschews evil, right? And Satan said to the Lord, do John fear God for naught? Meaning like like you giving him, you helping him so much, like so. Job had no other reason but to be loyal to you. That's what Satan is saying to God. So now this is God in his throne room having a conversation with his angels, and and so they're just discussing things, right? Basically. So Satan is basically telling God, like, hey, well, the main reason why Job is so loyal to you because you help him out so much, right? So and so that's why he's so loyal. Then he says, do Job fear God for naught? Meaning, like, you're not giving him a reason, to do bad. So it says, has not thou made a hedge above him? And the hedge is like protection, like a fence, right? So Satan is telling God, like, well, so you're protecting him. You basically, how, like, you got a parent that always trying to protect their child, what I'm saying? Like, basically putting like bubble wrap around their children. They don't want their child to fall. They don't want their child to cry. Every time the child make a noise, they come and picking them up. So they're putting a hedge around them. Then, you look at them like, why don't you let that baby be? You know what I'm saying? You can't do that to that child their whole life. You go around protecting them. Then when they get older, they're not going to know what trouble is, right? So this is basically the conversation that Satan is having with God about Job, right? They're having a conversation. They're not arguing. They're not fighting. They're not at each other's throat. God is not asking Satan, hey, what you doing up here? Didn't I kick you out? No, it didn't happen like that, right? Because that is Greek mythology. And Greek mythology has nothing to do with the Bible, right? We're reading the Bible. We're not reading about mythologies, right? So it says, and I gotta say it like that because I know a lot of our people have this idea. So I'm saying it like that on purpose to destroy the whole concept of Satan is just out here doing whatever he want to do. Because now you're disrespecting God and acting like God don't have control over nothing, right? So it says, have not thou made a hedge about him and about his house and about all that have he have on every side. Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increasing in his land. But if thou put forth his hand now and touch that he have, he will curse thee to thy face. So Satan is telling God, but if you put forth your hand and touch the things that he have, then he will start to curse you. Meaning, if you stop protecting him, then he's going to start cursing you, right? And the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he has is in thy power. Only upon himself put not forth thy hand. Put not forth thy hand. So he said, all right, look, take all his possessions. So God said, okay, well, Satan, do your work. Go take all his possessions, but don't hurt him, right? So God gave Satan permission to do the things that we read about in Job, right? It says, so Satan went forth from the presence of Yahweh, right? So as we see, God is sitting in his throne room. We're having a meeting with his angels. Then Satan is giving a report of what he have seen and came across on the earth. So then, as he's giving us report, the Most High God asked Satan, like, hey, what about my man's and Job? Then Satan's like, hey, well, you protect Job, so there's nothing too much I can do to him because you protect him. So then he's like, why don't you stop protecting him so much and let him actually experience, life, and then we'll see how he acts towards you, right? So that's the conversation in a nutshell, right? So just get so we see, like I said, so we see that it's a relationship there. So like I explained earlier, that Satan's job is to be the antagonist, to be the prosecutor that brings up charges to the Most High. So when he catch you doing something, his job is to report back to God and say, hey, this nigga did this. You won't believe what your servant is out here doing, right? That's his job, right? So it says, let's get Isaiah 45:7 real quick. Isaiah 45:7. So Isaiah 45:7 says, so this is Most High talking, this is God talking. I form the light, I created darkness. I make peace, I create evil. I, the Lord Yahweh, do all these things. So we see that God is letting you know that He the one that makes good and He's the one that makes evil. He created the universe, He created darkness. He made light, He made dark. It says, I formed the light and I created darkness. I make peace, I create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things, right? So God is in control. So God is not, not in control, and Satan just going around just causing all types of havoc without God's permission. Just like when Satan was talking to God, he said, if you put your hand on everything he has, right? He didn't say if I do it. So, but God gave a permission to, because Satan has certain powers where he can influence certain things and certain actions to happen. So God said, okay, well, I'm going to loosen up my protection on him. So do what you do. Just don't do anything that actually can cause him physical harm, right? So let's jump to Amos real quick. Amos 3:6. So we got to understand this because these are stuff that pastor would never ever read, right? So we got to understand the God of the Bible, the real God of the Bible. Because we will say, well, God is all love. But we don't understand that God flooded the whole world and killed everybody except for 8 people. We will say God is all love. But he killed all the firstborn of the Egyptians and their cattle. So we got to understand the type of God we serve, right? So it says, so this is Amos chapter 3 and verse 6. So a trumpet be blown in the city, and the people not be afraid. Meaning when alarms and sirens is going off and there's, some stuff going on, people are going to be running for it. It says, shall there be evil in the city, and the Lord have not done it? So when commotion's going on, is letting you know that the Most High is the one that's behind all this. Like we just read that he says, I made good and I created good and I created evil. It says, so evil be done in the city, and the Lord have not done it. Surely the Lord God will do nothing but reveal his secrets unto his servants the prophets. And that's what he's doing in these last days. He's revealing what he's doing on this earth to his servants and his prophets. And it's their job to go out and tell the people destruction is coming. That's why I always keep telling people that America is about to get wiped off the map. Right? So we got to warn the people, because we don't warn the people because we're thinking that this place is going to last forever. Everybody waiting for the time that things can go right back to normal, but it ain't going to go back to normal. Russia got a bomb called Satan II that is 50 times stronger than the bomb that hit Japan, right? And so let's get the book of Psalms, right? So we got to understand what's happening here. Let's get Psalms 34:7. Psalms 34:7. The angel of the Lord encamp around them that fear him and deliver them. So, people say guardian angels and stuff. Yeah, it's such a thing called guardian angels. But we just read it. It says, the angel of the Lord encamp round about them that fear him. So when you have that healthy fear of the Most High God, you understand that where your protection comes from, and you doing things in a righteous way, you have angels that will protect you from harm. Like how, this, certain instance, like, you would think to yourself, like, dang, I don't know how I made it out of that. That's because it was an angel that helped, that God assigned to you to help protect you, to get you through those different things. Like you might be in a shootout, or somebody, you might be going somewhere, then some crazy person starts shooting up everything, and then you make it out without a scratch on you. That's because an angel was there protecting you. It says, the angel of the Lord encamp around about them that fear him and deliver them. Right? So that's what happens. When you have a healthy fear of the Lord. you have protection, right? Let's get 35 and 5. So it says, let them be as chaff before the wind. Psalms 35 and 5. Let them be as chaff before the wind. Let the angel of the Lord chase them, right? So now this is a different type of angel. So this is an angel that's sending people on a run, making people run from, when stuff is happening. So it says, let their way be dark and slippery, and let the angel of the Lord persecute them. So now when you're going through some things, when you got hell in your life and shit happening to you, that's a spirit that's been put to operate on you to do those things. Because as we read, Satan can't do nothing unless God give him permission, right? And we're gonna keep on going, right? Let's get Psalm 78 real quick. 78 and 49. So 78 and 49 says, He cast upon them the fierceness of his anger and wrath and indignation and trouble by sending evil angels among them. So God can send what we call demons. Right here is calling them evil angels. He said he sent evil angels among them. So people think that Satan controlled the demons and God and Michael or whoever, they got the good angels. No, God got them all together. Because like how I explained it to you, you have Satan on the left-hand side of God, right? On the left-hand side of God. And Satan is the chief angels of the angels that's on the left-hand side. Then you have Michael, which is the chief angel of all the angels on the right-hand side. Then, of course, you got Yahweh Jesus. He's sitting on the throne next to the Most High God. So that's how it goes. On one side of the council, he has these evil spirits. Then on the other side of the council, he had these good spirits. Then together, they come up with plans on how this earth is being operated, right? And we're going to get into all that, right? So we got to understand, like, Satan and these angels is not out here just willy-nilly just doing things. Because like I said, we got to put respect on the Most High God's name. Got to understand how God operates, right? So it says, he casts upon them he casts upon them the fierce of his anger and wrath and indignation and trouble by sending evil angels among them, right? So sometimes he will send an evil angel, to you. Like I said, and that was, and when you be experiencing these troubles and these little things that you go through. And he does it to punish you for whatever reason that he needs to punish you for. Or he does it to scare you straight, to get you back on the right path, right? So let's get Psalms 91 and 11. So like I said, all this stuff is here in the Bible. It's just that we don't pick this stuff up to read it, And so we got to understand. So when we read it, we see that what we've been taught in these churches doesn't line up with what the Bible is actually saying. So it says, this is Psalms 91 and 11. For he shall give his angels a charge over thee and keep thee in thy ways, right? So let's read it again. He said, he shall give his angels a charge over thee to keep thee in all thy ways. So like I just said that, sometimes he send an angel to punish you, and then he'll send an angel to scare you straight, to get you back on the right path, or to keep you from doing certain things, right? Like how, like, you might be in the car, like Trey, like the movie Boys in the Hood. Trey got in the car, right? The spirit, hopped on Trey to get in that car. But then as Trey got in the car, then another spirit came and hopped on him and said, hey, get out the car. So that spirit kept Trey from doing evil. Like how we read, it says, for thou shalt give his angels a charge over thee to keep thee in all thy ways, right? To keep, what it means in those ways is, keeping the commandments and doing and following what the Most High wants you to do, right? Let's get Psalms 103 and verse 20, right? It says, bless the Lord, ye angels that excel in strength, that do his commandments. You see that? It's telling that the angels follow his commandments. Meaning, there's no such thing as no rogue angel that's out here just doing whatever they want to do. There's no such thing as Satan just got his own band of angels and they just out here just doing, causing havoc, and God don't have no control over it. He just, like, oh my God, what I'm gonna do? Satan is out here. No, it's not. That's not what we're reading. It says, "Blessed be the Lord, uh, blessed be the Lord, ye his angels that excel in strength and do his commandments, hearkening," meaning to listen unto the voice of his word. That's what the angels do. They do whatever God command them to do, right? That's exactly what the angels do, as whatever God command them to do, right? So again, there's no such thing as some. That's like I said. That's all Greek mythology. That's all Roman mythology that we've been taught, and they use the Bible to teach it to us. But since a lot of us don't open this book up and read it, we don't know the things that we've been taught in our life when we go to these churches, that it doesn't line up with the Bible. It's not in the Bible. But as we're reading, we see that the angels of God listen to God, and it ain't no other way, right? So it says, so let's get 37. Let's go to Isaiah real quick. Jump up to Isaiah. Isaiah 37 and 36. So it says, "And then the angel of the Lord went forth and smote the camp of Assyrians," right? So now this is a death angel that God sent out to attack this Assyrian army. So it says, "And then it came to pass," let me jump back up. It says, "And the angel of the Lord, not of Satan, but of the Lord, went forth and smote the camp of the Assyrians, and 184,500. Um, and when they arose early in the morning, behold, there were all dead corpses." So God sent the death angel to go attack those Assyrian armies, you know, to put them to death, right? So, like I said, Satan is not out here just doing whatever the hell he wants to do. Everything he does is by permission of God, right? Because that's what the Bible says. Like we just read over here, it says, Bless the Lord, ye angels that excel in strength, that do his commandments and hearken unto the voice of his word." So the angels does whatever God asks them to do. So there's no such thing as some rogue angels and they just got their own band of army and they just doing some stuff. That's only in Hollywood and that's only in mythology. And it's not in the Bible, as we can see. And we got more to prove. We got more scriptures that back all of this up. So, like I said, we're just reading the Bible, and we see that what we've been taught about Satan and angels is not in the Bible. We see that Satan and God are on very good terms. Satan talks to God. He get permission from God to do certain acts, right? And they're carried out to either, like I said, to prove you. Because like if we're gonna, if you call yourself a follower and a believer of God, so God want to be able to prove you, right? Make sure that you're down for the cause. So He might have Satan come and visit you, and have Satan try to tempt you to do certain things. And if you go along with that, then if you fall into the trap, then Satan got one up on you. Then he can go back to God and say, "See, I told you this person wasn't no good," right? That's his job. Like I explained, that Satan is like the prosecutor in the courtroom that tells the judge all the bad things that you have done, right? So that's how we look at it, right? So then let's go to Daniel real quick. Go to Daniel 6:22. Says Daniel 6:22. "My God has sent his angel and have shut the lion's mouth. So now this is Daniel in the lion's den, right? And I'm pretty sure a lot of us is familiar with Daniel being in the lion's den. So now God sent the angel to put a spirit on the lions so the lions won't eat them. So it goes either way. He can either send that spirit to make those animals attack, like how you those the little TV show that used to come on Fox when animals attack. God put a spirit on those animals to do those certain things. Or he can put a spirit on those animals to leave you alone, right? So it says, my God has sent his angel and have shut the lion's mouth, that they have not hurt me. For much as before him innocence was found in me, and also before thee, O King, I have done no hurt, right? So because Daniel was an innocent man, but he got thrown into the lion's den, right? So God sent an angel to stop to put a spirit on that lion, so that lion does not, eat him, right? So let's get Zechariah, right? So like I said, we see this stuff is all over the Bible, right? It's just that we've been taught, that Satan just out here just doing things, right? But we see who's in control here, right? We see all that. So this is Zechariah 6 and 1, right? And it says, and I turned and lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, there were four chariots that came from between two mountains, and the mountains were of brass, right? And the first chariot. So these are talking about four spirits, four angels, or what commonly known as the four horsemen, right? So this is so it says the first chariot was a red horse, and the second chariot was a black horse, right? And the third chariot was a white horse, and the fourth chariot uh, gristled and bay. And then I said unto the angel that talked with me, What are these? What are these, my Lord? And the angel answered and said unto me, These are the four spirits of heaven which go forth from standing before the Lord and all of the earth. So these four chief angels, their job is to go around the earth and influence nations, right? And when you get into these different spirits and what they do, they all, one is to conquer, one is to enslave, one is to bring war, right? So and one is to rule, right? To have a dominion, to rule. So it says, and it says the black horse which are with are then therein go forth to the north country, right? The north country is America. And what is the black horse? The black horse represents slavery. When you get into the description of the black horse, it says, where I'm at, boom, 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 to the north country, and the white horse go after them. So the white horse is the one that's the ruler, the one that's the conqueror, right? The one that goes around conquering. So what happens? They brought slavery to the shores of North America. Then they conquered the native Indians, right, over here. So these are the different spirits that was put on those nations that came over to this side of the world, right? Then it says, and go forth after them, and the gristle go forth towards the south country. And the bay went forth and sought to go. And the bay went forth and sought to go, that they might walk to and fro through the earth. And he said, Get hence and walk and go forth uh, through the earth. So, like I said, these are different spirits, and their job is to go around these different nations and influence them to do things according to the Most High will, whatever He wants to do, right? So their job is to put the spirit on these different nations and these different rulers of these countries to cause them to do certain acts, right? Just like, for example, Biden, you know, He got the red horse on him right now because he's trying to go to war and put and doing these proxy wars with Russia. This and ultimately that's going to lead to their destruction, right? Of the Western power. So, like I said, like I said, these four spirits, which is commonly known as the four horsemen. So, like I said, so these are angels that, like I said, their job is to go, like it's saying right here, that their job is to go forth through the earth. And it says, then cried upon me and spake unto me, saying, Behold, these that go towards the north country have quiet my spirit in the north country. And how do they quiet our spirit? By, beating us down to submission to where, we don't want to rise up as a people to actually get up out of this, thing. Or whenever one of our leaders rise up, they kill our leaders. So that's how they quiet our spirit, right? So just real quick, let's get Revelation 6:6 real quick. So Revelation 6:6 says, And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts saying, Measure the wheat and penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see that thou hurt not the oil and the wine. So, like I said, when you understand what that measuring is, it's talking about slavery, right? And when you read it in the Greek and you look it up into the in the lexicon, it will tell you that it's a metaphor for slavery. So then that's what happened during slavery. They were barely feeding us just enough, to get us to the next day. And especially when you get to the plantations in Haiti, you can forget about it. The plantations in Jamaica, you can forget about it. They was starving those people to death. They were working them so hard that the average slave only lasts for about 5 to 7 years. You know, so like I said, you can forget about it. That's what's happening, right? So so it says boom boom boom. And when he opened up the third seal, and I heard, no, jump down to 6, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, Measure the wheat for a penny, and measure the barley for a penny, and see not thou hurt the earth. Right? See not, my bad. See not hurt the oil and the wine. Right? And the oil and the wine is talking about the knowledge and the wisdom of the people. Because a lot of our people that came over here in slavery, they understood that we were the people of God, right? Like people like Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman is from the Ashanti tribe. She knew that they were Israelites, right? Nat Turner, when he started reading this book, he figured out that, hey, this book is us. We are the Israelites. So a lot of our people had the understanding of who we were. That's why it says, hurt not the oil in the wine. That symbolized philosophy and knowledge, right? So a lot of our people end up retaining that knowledge, even though we wasn't allowed to read anymore, but we understood that, right? It's I can't think of the book, but when the settlers first came over here approaching the Native Americans with the Bible, the Native Americans said, "Hey, this is our book. Where do you get this book from? This is about us. This is documented." The Native Americans said that, right? Um, let's get First Kings, right? Let's get, like I said, we're establishing how these spirits relate to the Most High and how God relate to these angels, right? So let's get First Kings in 22. First Kings, boom, 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 22 and 19, right? So it says, First Kings 22 and 19. And he said, Hear thou therefore the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne. So now this is a vision that this prophet is seeing. It says, I see the Lord sitting on his throne. And once again, it takes us back to what we read in Job, where the Most High was sitting on his throne, and he called a meeting with his angels, and then they was discussing things, right? Then it says, sitting on his throne in the host of heaven, talking about the angels, the spirits, standing by him on his right hand and on his left. And we already explained that how the count, just like when you look at the videos, like the Senate House or the House of the House of Representatives. It's a split in the middle because you got the Republicans on one side and you got the Democrats on the other side. Same thing with the Senate House. You got the Democrats on one side and the Republicans on that side. So here we have what we would say, how we would say, the good angels on one side and the demons on the other side, right? Then it says, and the Lord said, "Who shall persuade Ahab to go up and fall at Rahamath, Galilee?" Right. So God wants to kill this king named Ahab, right? So yes, God wants to kill people. We're reading that. So it says, uh, "Who will persuade Ahab that he may go up and fall at Rahamath, Galilee?" Right. So God's trying to come up with a plan to take Ahab down, and he's asking his angels, who has a good idea how we can handle this Ahab situation, right? Then it says, and he said, and one said on this matter, and the other said on that matter, meaning different angels came and spoke their, piece and said, hey, this is what this is what I think we should do, right? Hold on one second, y'all. Let me get back to it. Yeah, my bad. So right here, so Salakia. So now we back, right? So they're having a discussion on how they should do it. So now one angel, so some angels are saying, okay, this is how we should do this. Maybe we should do it this way. Another group of angels, some other angels saying this is how maybe we should do it that way, right? So it says, and it came forth a spirit and stood before the Lord, a spirit, same thing as an angel, right? Came forth a spirit and stood before the Lord and said, I will persuade him. And the Lord said unto him, wherewith? And so God's like, okay, what's your plan? How are you gonna do it? So say, what's your plan on it? And he says, he said, I will go forth and I will be a lion spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. Right. So now the spirit came up with the idea and said, okay, well, I'm gonna go put a spirit on all his prophets to go lie to him. They're gonna, act like they're speaking the word of God, but they're really gonna be lying to him, right? So then they're gonna persuade him that way. So he says, I will go forth and I will be a lion spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, thou shalt persuade him and prevail also. Go forth and do so. So God gave this angel permission to go put a lion spirit on this king's prophets, his advisors, to persuade him to go to war, for he can die in the war, right? So we see that God is given. Because you gotta understand, the Most High God is the King, right? He sits on his throne. So just like any king, he gives out orders and the people that subject to him, they carry out the order that the king has given. So now, God' order was for them to come up with a way to take out Ahab out of power. So then one of the spirits says, "Well, hey, I will go and I will become a lion spirit and make the prophets, go to him and just give him a whole bunch of lies to hype him up to go fight, and then just for him to die in the battle, right?" And the Lord said unto him, let me jump down to 23. Now, therefore, behold, the Lord said, put a light. Therefore, behold, the Lord hath. Now, see, now it's saying the Lord have done it, right? It says, behold, the Lord hath put a lion spirit in the mouth of all these prophets, and the Lord has spoken evil concerning thee, right? So that was God's plan. Because, like I said, he has a council of angels. Some sit on the left hand, some sit on the right. And together they discuss how they're going to implement the Most High agenda on this earth, right? So we see that there's no such thing. So we see that this lion spirit is what we would call a demon, right? It's not to us, it's not, you don't like people to lie to you. You know what I'm saying? Especially if they're gonna cost somebody life, right? That's an evil spirit, right? If somebody lied to get somebody killed, you're gonna be looking at that person like they're wrong, right? So we see that he has control over all these different spirits, and they can't do anything unless he gives them permission. They can suggest stuff, then God will figure out, okay, well, yeah, we're gonna do that. You know what I'm saying? But he don't have, you know, like I said, these angels is not just out here doing whatever they want to do. That's only in Hollywood, right? So let's get let's go to Job real quick, right? Let's get Job 4. Let's get Job 4 and 13, right? So, like I said, no, this is Job 4 and 14. 13. Let's start at 13. It says, in the thoughts from the visions of nights, in a deep sleep falleth upon them. So Job is talking about these little nightmares, right? That sometimes people have, where like you might have like a little evil spirit come visit you while you sleep. You know how we might say, like how the people say like a witch is riding you, where you kind of, where they call it sleep paralysis, right? Where you can't move, you can't talk, and all that stuff, right? So Job is speaking on that right now, right? So it says through the visions of the night, when thou sleep and fall and deep sleep falleth on man, fear come upon me, and trembling made all my bones shake. Because, like I said, when you know that there's something is spiritually attacking you while you sleep, that's going to be fearful. It's going to make you scared, right? So this is Job is talking about. Then the spirit passed before my face. The hair of my flesh stood upon me. Because sometimes, you hear people say stories that they see like shadowy figures and stuff, right? You might see something out the corner of your eye. 9 times out of 10, you probably really did see something, right? So sometimes you might see something that's real quick across the. You're like, dang, what? And then you look and you don't see nothing there. Like I said, you probably really did see something, because it's telling you right here. It says, then the spirit passed before my face. The hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern the form thereof. So some people say they see like little dark figures and stuff that's moving in their room or something, right? And it says, a image was before my eyes, and there was a silence, and I heard a voice saying, shall a mortal man be more just than God? Shall a mortal man be more pure than the Maker, right? So now, the spirit, so Job is speaking on like these spirits that came to visit him, and him going through what they call sleep paralysis, or how the old folks say, a witch is riding you, sitting on you or something, right? So, like I said, so things like that happen. And those are evil spirits that God sometimes send on us, right? Well, not sometimes, all the time. Well, I mean by sometimes meaning it doesn't happen all, to everybody, but it happens. And that's a spirit that the Most High sent on us, right? Let's get let's go to Exodus, right? So as we can see, man, we're seeing that when we're going through all these scriptures, because I'm make sure because I'm trying to go through all these, right? So we can get a clear understanding that Satan is not out here just willy nilly just doing things, right? So he's not just out here just doing things, right? So let's get Exodus whatever 12, right? And start at 23. So it says, "For the Lord passed through and smite the Egyptians. When he seen the blood on the lintel and the two sides posts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer." So now it's an angel called the destroyer. It's a death angel that is called the destroyer, right? It says, "And will not suffer the destroyer to come unto your house and smite you," right? So we see that it's an angel called a destroyer that's going around, you know, killing the firstborn of the Egyptians. So, because when you get into the story of Exodus, you see that it came a point in time, the last plague, that God killed all the firstborn, right? So this is how. So when people say God is all love, they're not really logically thinking about the stuff that happened in the Bible, because we hear right here, God killed all the firstborn of Egypt, right? And then also he flooded the whole world and killed everybody except for 8 people, right? And so all these things is archaeological. Archaeology is proven through archaeology, right? Because I was just watching a documentary not too long ago about how they found mass graves in Egypt of um, of these, of children, right? Egyptian children, and then on their Egyptian coffin text or whatever they call it, they speak about these events that happened during the time of Moses, right? And they don't call him Moses; they call him was it Amen Misi, right? They call him Amen Misi. But so like I said, so these are things that we can actually look up. You know what I'm saying? So we don't have to be in the dark about these things, because these things is, you know, they're researchable, right? So we don't have to rely on, what people were saying. We can go and research these topics ourselves, right? So just get what I want next. Let's go to Judges, right? Go to Judges. Go to Judges 16 and 24. So Judges 16 and 24 says, when the people saw him, and when the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, our God has delivered unto our hands our enemy, and the destroyer of our country was show us many slew us many of us, right? So here again we see that destroyer angel again putting in work, and the people are rejoicing that, that the destroyer angel came and destroyed this nation that, that they had to fight, right? So he has an angel called the destroyer, right? So let's get Joshua real quick. Go to Joshua, not Joshua, Job. My bad. Let's go to Job. Job 33, real quick, and and 22 says, "Yeah, his soul draw near unto the grave. His life is to the destroyer." Right? Again, so now what this is talking about, somebody that's at old age and they're going through hella health problems right now, right? So they're approaching old age and they have all bunch of so much different health problems that these health problems is eventually going to cause their death. So that's why it says, "Yeah, his soul draw near unto the grave," meaning he's getting older and his life is to the destroyers. So the destroyers, like I said, those are death angels that God has. So God has death angels. He has angels that job is to save and protect people. He have angels whose job is to warn people of danger. That's why sometimes, like, you might be trying to rush out the house, but then you realize you left your keys. But then you might be tripping that you left your keys because now you're going to be late. But then you don't understand, by you being late, that potentially saved you from getting into a car accident, or or something, even worse. So like I said, it's, the angels have different offices and they perform different duties, but they're not doing things on their own. Everything they do is what God tells them to do, whether they're good angels or bad angels. And we only look at it from our point of view, from how we look at it, and from our stance, that they're good. There's good angels or bad angels. That's how we look at it. But from God's point of view, they're just soldiers, and they carrying out orders on what God asked them to do, right? So let's get Jeremiah 2:27 real quick. 22 and 7. It says, "I will prepare the destroyer against thee." So here's that angel again. So God is talking about he's going to prepare the destroyers against thee, everyone with his weapon, and they shall cut down thy choice cedars and cast them to the fire. So God is talking about he's going to use this destroyer to destroy a certain nation, right? And we already kind of went into what nation that is, right? So, like I said, so we see right here is an angel called a destroyer that God is using to cause havoc on people, right? So we got to understand, we got to get out of that Christianity mindset, right? And it's nothing. No, so I'm gonna make this clear, right? Because I know y'all hear me sound like I be bashing the whole, because Christianity is not in the Bible. Christianity is white supremacy slash Greek mythology and Roman mythology with a little bit of Egyptology thrown in there. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a Christian, but if you're gonna call yourself a Christian in the modern sense, then you typically is following Christianity, which now you're not on par, because the word Christian just means to it's a Greek word that means followers of Jesus. But the Christianity doesn't actually follow Jesus. They tell you opposite of what Jesus says. They tell you not to keep the laws of God, but Jesus kept the law, right? Jesus taught the law. But church, they don't teach no laws of God. That's why if you ask anybody, name me some commandments out of the Bible. I mean, they might say, well, 10 commandments. I heard people say, oh, well, it's 9 commandments. Like some people don't even know that it's 10. About the 10 commandments. That's the bare minimum that people would know, because it's more. It's actually more commandments than 10, and we went over that a few weeks ago about the different commandments that's outside of the 10, because it's like over 600 something something laws, right? So like I said, our people don't know the laws of God. People don't know what they only thing they know, that Jesus loved everybody, and this I know, right? Because the Bible tells me so. But at the same time, that's a song, and like I said, they don't know what Jesus taught while he was on the earth. They don't. When you go to church, they don't teach you the things that Jesus taught. They just teach you that Jesus died for everybody, which is not true. He didn't die for everybody. He only died for the Israelites, and we proved that many times before. And I have no problem proving that again, right? Um, so our people don't know what's going on, and that's that's the bad thing, because we spend all our time in these churches and we don't learn not a goddamn thing. We just learn our favorite songs. That's what we learn. We learn, that's we know the songs more than we know what the Bible actually says, right? And that's a shame, right? So where are we at with this? Because I'm over here ranting. Um, Jeremiah Jeremiah 22:7. It says, okay, I read that. Boom, boom, boom. Um, let's get let's go to let's go to Samuel's real quick. Second Samuel's and 24. So it says, and so now this is getting into the David, right? This is about the Most High God putting a spirit on David to do something because he wanted to punish Israel, because Israel was kind of backsliding and messing up. So he used David for to punish Israel, right? And just like how we read in Second Kings or First Kings about how he put that spirit on Ahab, on Ahab prophets and his advisors, to go and lie to him, to trick him into going to war, so then he would die in battle, right? So now let's read this. So it says, this is a 2 Samuel 24:1. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, go number Israel and Judah, right? So now when you understand, like, this is basically taking a census, right? How they have, like, every year or so they have, census to count how many people, right? So now this is, so now, so now when you read the book of Numbers is about Israel keeping track of how many people we got, right? So, but so we can know how to split certain things up, right? Um, but here, you know, David had, David got full of himself, right? And I'm saying it like that because that's how it eventually played out. Because we just seen that, David, God put a spirit on him to make him to do it, right? So, so David got full of himself, and he wanted to check how big his army is, because and he wanted to see how much power he had by seeing how big his army is. And if you know anything about God, God don't deal with numbers, right? God don't care how many people it is or how many people you got, because God would take the least and make that least do way better than the people with all the numbers, right? So um, let's get let's go to Chronicles real quick. Go to Chronicles. Go to Chronicles 20. First Chronicles 21. Now it says, now First Chronicles 21:1 says, and Satan stood against Israel and provoked David to number Israel. So now we see that God uses Satan, but he's actually using Satan to put that spirit on David to go and number the children of Israel, right? But we read in Second Kings, First Kings, no, Second Kings, my bad. Second Samuel's, that the Most High was mad at David, and he put the spirit on him to do that. So that spirit he put on him was that spirit of Satan, that pride spirit, to go number the children of Israel so he can boast about how big his army is, right? Right? So let's get where I really, really want. So let's jump down. So let's jump to So now David did it. So long story short, so David numbered the children of Israel because, like I said, the spirit of pride came on him. So just go to 11. We're gonna start at 11 to get straight to the point. So Gad, which is a prophet, came to David and said unto him, "Thus said Yahweh, choose thee three, choose three." So God had, presented David with three sets of different punishments that he can have, right? So it says either 3 years of famine or 3 months to be destroyed before thy foes, meaning your enemies are gonna just be jacking you up for like 3 months straight. Um, let me see where I'm at. Of your foes, while that the sword of thy enemies overtake thee, or else 3 days of the sword of the Lord, and the even the pestilence, meaning plagues. You know how we recently went through the little the C-19 stuff, right? It says even the pestilence, even the land of the land, and the angel of the Lord destroying throughout all the coasts of Israel. And now, therefore, advise thyself, uh, what word should I go and bring back to him that sent me? So now, the you know the prophet, is asking, telling David, like, hey, look, God giving you three choices on how to, you know, this punishment, right? You can either you know, be running from your enemies for 3 months, and they be jacking you up. You can have a famine. You can have famine in the land for 3 months where nobody got food or anything, or I can bring a disease on the people for 3 days, right? Where this disease just break out like in the 3 day span in on the people, right? So it says, and David said unto God, I am in great straits, meaning he don't know what to do, he don't know what to choose, right? It says, let me fall now into the hands of the Lord, for great are his mercy, but let me not fall into the hand of man, right? So David said, well, I'd rather have let God do it, as far as like the punishment, let God do it with his hand, rather than have me running from my enemies for 3 months, because they might not have mercy on me like God will probably have mercy, right? So it says, so the Lord sent a pestilence, meaning diseases, upon Israel, and fell Israel 70,000 men. So God killed 70,000 people in 3 days, right? So let's see how he did it. And God sent an angel unto Jerusalem to destroy it, and he was destroying and he was destroying, and the Lord beheld and repented of him of the evil. So when it says repented, meaning he changed, he stopped, right? Not that he felt bad or sorry. Just mean repent means to stop, right? It says so it says we're almost done here. So it says and he repented of the evil, and he said to the angel that destroyed it, enough, stay now thy hand. And the angel of the Lord stood by the threshing floor of Oran, the Jebusite. And David lifted up his eyes and saw the angel of the Lord standing between the earth and the heaven, having drawn a sword in his hand, stretched out over Jerusalem. And David and the elders of Israel who were clothed in sackcloth fell upon their faces. Right? So David got a glimpse of this angel that was going around causing all this sickness in Jerusalem, in Israel, and killed 70,000. So God, you know, only put a stop to it because the angel was on his way to kill the people in the city of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem, that's the holy city, right? So God was like, all right, okay, chill out, that's enough, right? So, like I said, so we see this death angel that brought sickness upon Israel and killed 70,000 in 3 days, right? Sort of like how we experienced with this C-19 thing, how so many people was dying over a course of time, right? So we seeing a theme here that God is in control. He's the one that put these angels up to do what they do. These angels is not out here just doing things, right? So we got to understand that. We got to. I'm trying to make that abundantly clear, right? Because we give too much credit to Satan, and like Satan is just out here just doing whatever he want to do, you know. And so when you get to the point to understand that Satan is following orders like all the rest of the angels follow orders, then the more better understanding you have, and the more happier you will be understanding that it is the Lord that's doing this. And now you need to figure out, why is God doing this? Let me get my stuff together, right? Instead of just thinking that Satan just out here just calling shots by himself, right? That's only in Hollywood. So just see, let's get Nehemiah real quick. Let's try to get through this real quick. I don't know how much charge I got left on this battery. But let's get Nehemiah. Let's get Nehemiah 1 and 5 real quick. So Nehemiah 1 and 5. It says, "And I said, I beseech thee, O Lord of heaven, and great and terrible," right? So when you understand, we serve a great and terrible God, right? And terrible because the power that he has, the things that he can do. And his the other nations call him El Shaddai, which means either almighty, all powerful, and it also means great terror, right? So it says, "And I said, I beseech thee, O Lord, God of heaven, the great and terrible God, that keep covenants and mercy for them that love him and observe his commandments," right? So he can be terrible if you're not following his laws and keeping his laws. That's why we experience so much hell in our life and so much stuff going on, right? Because he's a God of justice. He will punish you if he got to. He will, like a parent will lay the law down with that belt. God will do the same thing, right? Let's go to 4 and 4. Jump up to 4 and 14. Same book. Then it says, "And I looked, and I rose up, and I said to the nobles and the rulers and the rest of the people, Be not afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible." So people say, "Well, God is all love." We just saw two different occasions that uh, describe God as being great and terrible, right? And it says, "I looked, and I rose up, and I said unto the nobles and the rulers and to the rest of the people, Be not ye afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, for your sons, and for your daughters, and for your wives, and for in your houses." Right. So, we see that because we got a God that will fight for us, right? And our God, He's terrible in His way when He passed judgment. Did y'all remember the earthquake that happened over there in Turkey, right? How He destroyed, that whole city right there, right? He's terrible in His way when He do things. When God passes judgment, it's terrible, right? So we cannot say, "Oh, God is all love," and forget the whole accounts that we read about in the Bible. Because God does love His people. Don't get me wrong. He loved His people. He loved the Israelites. You will not read this book and see where God expresses love for any other group of people but the Israelites. So He loves us. But we got to be obedient and do what He asks us to do, which is keeping the laws of God, right? So let's get Psalms real quick. Jump back up to Psalms. Look at Psalms 47. 47 and 2. It says, For the Lord Most High is terrible. He is a great king over all the earth. Right? Again, we see that. So we got to understand with the power that we serve, he could be terrible. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're going through all that stuff in your life and everything just so bad, that's because we serve a God that's also terrible. He's not just all love, right? So we got to understand the God of the Bible. See, we want a powder puff girl type of guy. You know what I'm saying? We want this big old softy type of guy, but that's not who he is. The Bible tells you in the book of Exodus that he is a Lord, he is a man of war, right? So we got to understand who this Bible is all about. And for some of y'all that's just jumping, into the live, like I said, we went over the whole Satan and angel thing, right? Now we're showing you that how God has all power over all these different things, right? And how God calls the shots. So, because I know some of y'all might jump in and it might seem like I'm calling God Satan, because I know how people think, you know what I'm saying? But when you watch the whole video, you'll see how all of this connects together, right? I pray y'all understand that, hopefully. So let's get Psalm 66 real quick. Psalm 66 and 3, and it says, Say unto God, how terrible art thou in the works, through the greatness of thy power shall thy enemies submit themselves unto thee. Right? So God has enemies, and he's terrible to his enemies. And through him being terrible, they're going to submit themselves to him. Right? And we're going to find that out real soon. And it's, coming up in the future. Right? Let's get Psalms 9 and 16 real quick. Psalms 9 and 16 says, For the Lord is known by his judgments, right? It says, For the Lord is known by his judgments, which he execute. The wicked is snared in the work of his own hands. Uh, uh, Hezekiah Selah, right? So the Lord is known by his judgments. That's how we know about this God. That's what made God famous. When he destroyed Egypt, he's known of his judgments. Let's get two more before my battery cuts out of here. So let's get Proverbs 1 and 7. Proverbs 1 and 7 says, The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, right? But fools despise wisdom and instructions. And that's the problem with our people. We despise wisdom and instruction, right? And once you have that healthy fear of the Lord or the Most High, he's going to start opening up your mind and your understanding and your wisdom, so you can be able to understand this book, right? So let's get one more, then we out here. We're going to end with this. We're going to end with this one. Ecclesiastes 12 and 10. 12 and 13. My bad. So Ecclesiastes 12 and 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the matter. So that's what we got to do. So, like I said, for those that's jumping in and out, jumping in the video and catching it in the middle, or we're at the end now, it says, let us hear the conclusion of the matter. Fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. This is what God wants us to do, to fear him, keep his commandments, come back to the law, statutes, and commandments. Stop thinking that Satan is out here doing whatever he wants to do and he's not under God's control, that he just have his own band of angels and they just out here just willy-nilly. No, all angels follow the Lord completely, right? Like it tells you in the book of Proverbs that all the angels follow God perfectly, right? They do everything God asked them to do. There's no such thing as a rogue angel of an angel beefing with God. There's no such thing as that. God is all powerful. He cannot be all powerful if he have angels beefing with him, right? So understand that is Christianity, Greek mythology, Egyptology. It has nothing to do with the Bible. So shalom. I hope this was edifying and we got a better understanding of Satan's role in this thing. So I'll say shalom and peace. Till next time.